You've landed in the confidence zone with Susan Axelrod, the confidence coach. This is a place for topics of information and inspiration, a place to support you to find your confidence, get bold, and get going. Activation is needed today at all levels. Don't wait for someone else to lead. Lead now where you are with what you have. Your energy and enthusiasm matters. Believe it or not, it impacts all of us. Find your confidence, get bold, and get going. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Confidence Zone. I want to start this episode by sharing a trigger warning. Today, we're going to be talking about surviving suicide loss. If you hear about this topic, and if you feel unsafe for yourself, I invite you now to please go find and use your important contact list. This is a list of at least 5 names and phone numbers of people you've spoken to about being one of the people you can call if you feel you need support at that moment. It's important to have at least 5 names in case the first ones aren't available right then. Keep contacting the names on the list, and you'll get the person with whom you're safely able to say, "I'm scared." If you're a person for whom this topic is familiar, then you will understand that warning that I just gave. And I want to give you time right now to access your list. Today, I'm bringing this topic to the conversation because it feels to me like there isn't a week that goes by that I am not reading stories of suicide and surviving suicide loss on social media, including and especially even on LinkedIn. You can't be human today, a breathing, living soul, without being impacted deeply by these personal stories shared. As I always do, as I have been reading through these stories, I ask myself, what can I do? And as I always do, I said to myself, I can speak about it and bring attention to this issue. The next thing I did was ask myself, who's my resource? And I knew immediately that my guest today would be Penny Myers. Penny was a client of mine as she worked on her first book, Surviving the Path of Suicide Loss, talking about her own experience losing her son, Nicholas. And then when I called Penny and said, I have this in mind, would you be willing to do this? Her immediate, unequivocal response was yes. Before I bring Penny on, I just want to share with you a few statistics that I researched and found on the website for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. The statistics are as recent as they have from May of 2024. 49,476 Americans died by suicide, making it the 11th leading cause of death. However, it was the 3rd leading cause of death for ages 15 to 24. It was the 2nd leading cause of death for ages 25 to 34. It was the 4th leading cause of death for ages 35 to 44. And more than 1/3 of people who died by suicide were 55 or older. 90% of those who died by suicide had a diagnosable mental health condition at the time of death. And this, of course, speaks to the desperate need for effective mental health services. This is a topic of great, deep, and personal concern to me, and I hope that you will tune in your own community and figure out how to help support the need for effective mental health services. As I thought about the idea of discussing this topic, of course, I thought long and hard about it. It's been on my mind for a long time. The reason I decided to come here today and bring this conversation to the table was a crying increase in the number of stories. And so I'm going to read just a bit from the book that Penny wrote about surviving the path of suicide loss. And then we'll bring Penny in. The drama begins after suicide touches Penny's life. The relevance of her experience will embed itself within your belief system from this point forward. The authenticity of the author's vulnerability brings the purpose of her survival to light. The character arc is the harsh life lesson reality has set in our mind. The after effect is a true heartfelt reality that makes surviving so worth achieving. Penny woke up one morning to her life shattered before her like a 1,000-piece puzzle. However, she never stopped looking for what she needed to do in order to survive another moment, to get to a day that would turn into months and then years. This book sheds light on how her life journey through suicide loss brought her to discover her survival tools and live a life of joy and happiness. Then, to assist others to find their healing, it was vital to find a safe, non-judgmental environment to speak openly, as she felt so raw and very fragile. Today, Penny offers that space to others, unafraid to address the hardest question of all. Are you thinking about taking your own life? And to the survivors, she can honestly say, I understand what you're going through. Penny, thank you so much for being here with me today. It's good to see you, my friend.
It's good to see you, Susan. And thank you so much for being open and willing to talk about surviving the loss of a loved one by suicide.
I learned early on, perhaps from our work together, possibly before, that we use the expression died by suicide. I want to make a point of this right at the beginning to help people understand language matters. And so the expression committed suicide is old, it's outdated, it no longer applies. And so along the way of our conversation today, Penny, we're going to edify people with things like this.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
one thing I want to do right from the outset is to say, sadly and tragically, I really do have several friends now who have lost children by
Oh,
different ways. And
yeah,
I know how important it is to talk about our children. So I want to
yeah.
just start by asking you to share with us a little bit about Nicholas.
Thank you, Susan. And it's my honor to share all my children. Were beautiful, wonderful, amazing. I love them all, here, present, and past. Nicholas was very friendly, outgoing. He had my smile. He had the outgoing friendliness, fearless personality, and was loved by all. He was eye candy. He had girls. He was well dressed. He took great pride in how he looked. And he was the worst for taking up time in the bathroom to prepare for an outing. Worse than women. Everything had to be perfect. That I remember most of all. And then I guess I can only say I remember his hardship towards the end because it was not as visible earlier as it was towards the end when he was struggling. And it's funny for you to say the statistics. I think the statistics have changed. 90% diagnosed an illness, a mental illness, my high clients are non-diagnosed mental illness.
Mm.
Still today. It's unbelievable how many have not been diagnosed with even a mental issue. I think that that has progressed over time because the mental health professionals find it immediately to diagnose, but where do they go with it? What do you do with it? How do you manage it? That is the great $1 million question.
I remember from many conversations along the way, that one of the things I learned from you was having honest, real, direct conversation with
Yeah,
people about their own personal circumstances. I do want to say that one thing we know for sure about statistics is those stats are only the ones that are reported. And
that's right.
so all the unreported are out there, but
Exactly.
not statistics. And you've already started to share that reality
Yes,
with us about the people who are not diagnosed with mental health issues, concerns, or actual illnesses. And I do remember that you are willing to speak with people when you begin to get a sense of the desperate, depressive orientation.
yes,
And I remember that you were the one who told me about asking the question, are you thinking about taking your own life?
yes. And asking, are you thinking about taking your life? There is also a statement that can be made like, it sounds like you are possibly at risk of taking your life. Do you have a plan? Have you been thinking about this? Is it on your mind? Is it all you think about? If so, that's when you can go farther. Why people feel uncomfortable with asking it is because 99% of the people believe, oh my God, I need to fix this. What do I do to fix it? How do I change it? I have to do something. But really, you don't have to do anything, and there is nothing to fix.
Wow.
Just
You're
sit in silence.
you're now I'm being reminded of exactly that. The whether you make a statement, it sounds like you are possibly at risk of taking your life.
Yes,
And then, or asking a question, do you have a plan? This is where the real revelation is, and how much it's on someone's mind. And then you said you sit and listen.
yes,
And you've spoken with so many people, between people who have considered suicide themselves
yes,
and then either succeeded or not, and then
yes,
also survivors of suicide loss. And I think that I really agree with you. Between you and my other friend, Kelly Walk Hines, who is a survivor of domestic violence herself and also works now with the victims of domestic violence, and you working in the area of suicide and suicide loss, I've learned it's okay to ask these questions or to have
yes,
these conversations. It's
yes,
okay. You're saying it, you're going into this space does not
yes.
create something worse.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. You don't create it because it's already there, quietly simmering, waiting to bring it to a boil. And how better to have it brought to a boil when you're amongst somebody or people that want to know. It helps them bring it out, which brings it to a simmer instead of a boil.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I want to say now that in our planning conversations about this podcast discussion, you were the one who alerted me and told me, if you're going to talk about this, we need to start with a trigger warning. And then you were the one who told me, here's what you say. I
Yes,
wrote down your exact words about having your important contact list.
yes,
And this edifies in a very, very important way for us to understand that we, each and every single one of us, can ask ourselves, am I willing to be on someone's important contact list? Am I
right.
willing to be, am I able to be that safe person if they say,
Yes,
I'm scared, I
yes.
need help?
And on a on another note, am I willing? What a interesting question to ask yourself. Am I willing to be on a person's list? Let's think about that. When you say that, immediately, personally, I can feel, whoa, the responsibility, the liability. Please rest assured, when you're thinking about that, you bring that question up to that person. What does it mean to be on your list? What are your expectations? And can I meet those expectations? Because asking that person and that person giving you what they expect is not the same thing you're thinking as being the contact person. And then the person contacting you has a totally different expectation. Come,
Wow.
yes,
Wow, this is deep and huge. This is so big. So, just to repeat this, and also saying this out loud, saying this out loud, it's
yes,
so good to get this
yes,
out, to be speaking this out loud right now. Um,
yes,
having a conversation, if someone was guided by a therapist often
yes,
to say, find your safe names, find your safe people, create a list. A therapist will sometimes support you in that. And then you begin to say, who would be on my list? And then you
yes,
ask them. And then I'm asked to be on the list. And then
yes,
I say, what are your expectations? And you've
yes,
really edified us that my presumption of what
yes,
that means, and you use the word responsibility and liability, my
yes.
presumption of what that means may not mean what the expectation is by the person asking. And so communicate, communicate, communicate is huge.
I can guarantee there would be two different expectations.
Mm,
And that's why being open, the first thing a person feels when they're asked to be on the list is fear.
yeah.
And we know fear, we will avoid anything if we feel the fear. So hit the fear, address the fear head on to eliminate it so that both parties are more comfortable. And when you know your expectations, you will feel better about saying, I will be on that list. I can do that for you and for me. Yes,
Wow, this is really so big. it's so big and so deep and so important right now as we see it's hard to throw a stone, within a few feet of yourself without hitting someone who's in a pretty significant emotional or
Yes,
mental state of unwellness at best, or
yes.
possibly spiraling down even into crisis of a sort. So, we're going to be talking about surviving suicide loss. However, these the points that we're making this topic on speaking with someone about their mental health status, being direct, compassionately loving them through the difficulty, loving yourself through the fear and desperate worry that you have, to be able to, listen to what Penny is sharing with us, to understand that sometimes we can just ask these questions, make statements, listen, and be there, like
Yes.
in unison or in partnership or in support, in partnering support with them. And
Unconditional.
yes,
Safe.
unconditional.
Yeah.
And it does beg the question at any time that, if it's someone close to me or even known to me, and I think about this or wonder, I'm worried about them and their mental health status.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, that fear comes up, worry. What can I do? What can I do? What's coming up for me is how much we don't talk to each other when we're in these difficult states. You
Yes.
would never, except now in this conversation where you're
Yes.
edifying us, you wouldn't say to somebody, are you thinking about taking your own life? Or even making a statement, it sounds like you are possibly at risk of taking your life. Like, you wouldn't say that in normal in the normal circumstances, but these
Yes.
are not normal times.
Susan, I had a very close person, without naming, ask me, what do I say? What do I say? This person I'm talking to right now has said this, this, and this. And I came back with, breathe and ask this person. It sounds to me like you're thinking about taking your life. And this person came back to me like immediately. I will never ask that question. I can't. No, I won't. I will not. No, you're wrong. And I said, listen to me. Ask the question. I'm here for you. Give me their response. Do it now. I'm telling you, this is the only way you can do this. And only because this person is very close to me and had to trust me, asked that question. And when that person said, oh my God, no, never, did that person relax.
Mm. And what
Yes,
what you did there was you helped your friend break through a thought, a
yes,
worry, a deep concern that was creating a very difficult internal energy for your friend, your close person, with
yes,
this perseverating worry. I mean, if your friend got as far to you as saying, oh my gosh, I'm wondering if this is going to happen, or what do I do? I don't know what to do. It sounds to me like, then your friend is having this experience in them. And then when your friend got confident, that's why we're here in the confidence zone,
that's
where
right.
we can be strong in in our personal foundation. We can be bold. It took brave for that person to trust you
Oh,
to then communicate with the other person. It sounds to me like
yes,
you are possibly at risk of taking your own life, at which point now the other person could say, what? No, no, that's not where I
yes,
am. and
Yes.
all the energy for all of us began to settle down. Now, what would have happened if that person had said, "Yes, I I am thinking that." What would you have?
Usually they will hesitate, there's silence for like seconds. It feels longer, but it's seconds, and that person will quietly come back with, yes, I am. That gives that person that's on the receiving end the ability to say, what do you need from me right now? And the person will usually say, listen to me. Or I've had them say, I want you to help me prepare my family. I literally had a person say to me, I've contacted you because you, as a mother, knows what my mother is going to go through when I complete suicide. That put me in a position of quietness immediately to be able to think and then come back with, let's talk about you first and why you are in a place of wanting to die by suicide, why you are talking about suicide, and looking for me to plan your mother's survival.
Mm,
So once they opened up to me, I came back with, it is not my responsibility to support your mother at this time. It's your responsibility to give your mother the resources. Then I can support your mother, but you give her the resources. That
I want
gave them a second thought. They wanted out of the responsibility to confront their loved one with the resources because that told their loved one their plan.
mm,
But I was there for both.
I want to stop here.
Yes.
I want to take a moment. This is this is it. We
Mm-hmm.
are in ground zero of this
Yes.
conversation. I want to
Yes.
acknowledge to our listeners and to our viewers,
Yes.
we are in the ground zero of what you just shared with us, put us into the ground zero of the actual conversation of being inside that. As
Yes.
we're at this basis, I'm aware that I don't that it could be traumatizing for people. It could be triggering for people,
Yes.
likely would be,
Yes.
and, that this is the hardest place of all. I wanna just
Very.
literally call out what's happening right
Yes.
here. But the fact that we're willing, to sit here and speak about this, and
Yes.
that you, just shared with us that you were in the actual conversation of
Yes.
someone who had made some sort of decision
Yes.
by witness of asking you to take care of the mother after I complete,
That's right.
and you saying, "Tell me about what's happening,"
Yes.
and saying, "You have to take that responsibility." I mean, this is the ground zero of this conversation. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yes. I've had professionals contact me because it is not in their training program, their schooling. They have certificates, but it's not in their training in the past. Things are changing, things are progressing. There needs to be updating the program, the school training, so people can talk openly. You do not avoid the subject.
Mm. It's so the energy is palpable here. You do not avoid the subject, even though 99.9% of the people would avoid the subject. And I guess in
Definitely.
part, um, that's why I wanted to bring it up. It, and then we're going to move into surviving the path of suicide loss. But I want to just really come to, like bring to attention where we are right now. And I want to invite people to understand there are resources out there. If you yourself are in this level of difficulty, I want to say one thing I've learned from Penny and some other research is somehow imagine you are loved. You are loved. I've learned that from you, Penny,
Yes.
to help people understand you are loved. You are loved.
You're worthy of being loved as well.
You are loved and you are worthy of being loved. That's a
Yes.
complete statement with a full stop at the end.
Yes.
And then if you are worried, desperately worried about someone else whom you think might be in this situation, I've learned from you, Penny, and you it began to indicate it here. If someone has, you even said if they've made a plan and and if this is on your mind, is this all you think about? Then also we need to figure out how to access resources
That's
through
right.
the American Foundation for the Prevention of Suicide,
Yeah.
or to please activate yourself to do research, find out what is available to you locally. Penny's available to you by
Yes.
phone. Um,
Yes.
or there are other people
Yeah.
like you, Penny, who might be available to have the deepest, darkest, scariest
Yep.
conversations of what am I going to do if my person completes suicide.
And
Um,
Susan, I want to intervene for a moment. Scariest is for you, scariest
yes,
is the unknown. For us, it is ease, it's release, it's the comfort, safe zone that a person thinking about it can finally relax, release, and talk. There is no scary, fearful moment. It is release, calm, relax, and speak openly. That's a totally different environment than for the scariest. There's nothing scariest about it. I don't ever fear, have fear, or feel it scariest. It's a moment of everything around me stops for the moment I'm listening to this person share where they are presently. Nothing scary about that at all. That is so normal to feel what they're feeling, and now to release it is almost beyond words. To be able to share the pain that is waiting to erupt for that person.
I want to invite anyone who is listening to this or viewing to this to come to attention and to consider playing back that last 30 to
Yes.
45 seconds that Penny just shared with us, because you bring us from your personal experience and
Yes.
from your professional work over a long time now, working with so many others in this space. You really bring the word is edification, like creating awareness about helping us to understand, teaching, uh, educating us on
Yes.
that which you just shared. That that moment, that moment that the rest
Yes.
of us, Penny, um, wouldn't understand in the way you just shared. So I want to say thank you very much for that. Thank
You're
you
welcome.
very, very much for that. I do not have any close personal experience in my family or close friend group, concentric circles around me. But of course, I do know people who have died by suicide,
Yes.
and I do know the people who have survived. One of those people um, was my neighbor, and that wonderful woman lived with mental unwellness for really a few
Mm.
decades of her life, such that her husband um, also lived with it.
Mm.
And when I began to glean this at some point, she was so close to the end that she actually, like you said, became more bold about speaking about her plan, not the details of her plan, but the idea of not being here anymore. And I spoke to her husband, and he said to me, I know. And of course, I had no idea about this. They were sort of neighbors, friendly, casual. And then he shared with me, this had been something that he had known
Right.
about a long time. The reason I'm bringing up this story now is in the context of what
Yes.
you just shared, which was she had a growing sense of relief and release as she came closer to the end. And her husband had a growing sense of worry and concern.
Mm. Okay.
But after she left this world by her choice, he became a survivor of suicide loss.
Yes.
And in a desperately tragic way, I know this personally from actual real conversation with him. There was in that type of circumstance, Penny, in that type of circumstance, there was a relief for him that it was over, because he lived every day of his life knowing this could happen.
Yes.
Now, he became a survivor of suicide loss in that way, but you did not. You did say that Nicholas struggled at the end. I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I don't recall. You said, if it was sudden and unexpected, or if it was expected. And could you share a little bit about that with us?
It was totally unexpected,
Totally unexpected. Yes.
totally a shock. There was no sign, no symptoms, no diagnosis. He was struggling school, he was in college, the teachers were on strike. It was in the third week of the strike. He went to work, he had opportunity to work. He wanted out of college and go to work rather than put in time, and so he did. He was working. He came home. I told him to come home. You can come home. And he came home, and I was at work, and he would contact me. That was our unspoken yet spoken agreement. At any time you can contact me, call me, message me on my cell, however. And he would. And I became a little concerned when he told me he was on the computer and looking for jobs, and then he decided he thought it was best if he went to the army. I was very concerned at that point because the army is not a place you go when you're struggling. Because I don't know if I can explain it. I just know that was a moment of concern. And I said, keep looking, keep looking. You have all kinds of options, keep them all open. I didn't like what I was hearing, but I wasn't telling him that. And so he broke up with his girlfriend that day. And I was unaware of that until later on, after we were notified that he had taken his life. His girlfriend had told us he had broke up. She had broke up with him. He did not break up with her. She broke up with him. And so that made a bit of a difference, obviously. And his best friend became feeling guilty that he wasn't there and didn't save him. And he also, at the very last moment, spur of the moment, no, no idea that he would take his life as well, 2 months to the day. Yes. So nobody was diagnosed with anything. And at the time, and at this time, it does not matter.
Right.
What matters is they didn't reach out. They weren't honest about what they were feeling. That's really what the whole point is. They did not reach out. Being diagnosed is a whole different level because they're in contact with a doctor, a psychiatrist, a counselor. However, undiagnosed is another issue because that's where spontaneous things happen
Mm,
and can happen.
right. As you share the story of Nicholas's last days, um, all the more I want to come back to when I stopped us before at ground zero and I
Yes,
said, wow, this is the conversation. This is the absolute basis. And then you said how much you come so into the moment, so present with the person that it's a relief, it's a calm space, it's not a
yes,
hyperbolic, emotional screaming, crying space, but it's rather a quiet space of a
yes,
deep contemplation between you and that person. But if they, you said, are not honest with them, are not honest, then it sort of begs the question, are we honest with ourselves about where we are,
right.
about what we're feeling? And then the other question, are we honest with each other? Who
Yes,
is the loved one? And now we're a little bit back to that conversation. Now I'm,
yes,
thinking about Nicholas and that drasticness, the desperation, and who is someone I can speak to. And I guess it's coming up for me. That's why we're having this conversation today,
yes,
between the surviving suicide loss. But there may be people, it could be, there may be people who are listening to us and saying, maybe it might be safe for me to speak with someone. Maybe it
yes,
might be okay for me to share the darkest secret of
yes,
all, that I'm
yes,
thinking about taking my own life. And you use the word guilt.
yes,
Nicholas's dear friend felt guilty.
yes.
We're going to leave his path over there,
Yep.
because we're not in that story. But I just want to say I'm, so deeply sorry for the loss of that friend, for his entire
His friend
family.
was a survivor of suicide loss,
He was.
as all of us. are survivors of suicide loss, losing a close friend, a known friend, a loved one, a parent, a child, a spouse, a sibling. Being a survivor of suicide loss, you take on the pain that our loved one left us with. That's where being at risk can put us. Very common. The pain is too much to deal with. It's not a choice to take your life, whether you are diagnosed or not diagnosed. It's pain. It's pain that takes us. People have to understand this is not being selfish when we take our life or they take their life or whoever they are. Those that die by suicide have got tremendous amount of pain, horrific amount of pain. When the pain takes their life, they are at a calmness.
Mm.
They've accepted, I no longer can deal with this pain. Anybody, everybody, not a soul is saved or excluded from being at risk of suicide. The youngest I'm aware of is 5 years old. The oldest is 80, in their 80s.
Mm.
That covers a wide range.
Right. Right. In the time that we're having this conversation, there's a very famous episode right now of an 11-year-old girl
Yes,
who recently, in this time of our conversation, who recently took her life. And that was one of the final things, reading that story, that
oh,
spurred me to pick up the phone and call you because, and that girl was from an immigrant family. She was bullied in school by others and told your parents are going to be deported, etc. But I remember reading so many comments when I read this story.
yes,
Um, and people saying, how does an 11-year-old even know how to do this? You know, like
right.
how does an 11-year-old even come up with this? Or you say a 5-year-old. And I know that you are speaking the truth. I know because my husband was a psychologist. He was a child psychologist, and he worked, with people who had younger children take their own lives. So I know personally, well, not personally,
Yes.
it's through my
But
husband,
yes, yes,
of these real stories. And so again, you say, to come back to this point, that the survivor, the person who survives suicide loss, takes on the pain the loved one left us.
yes,
And then you said, we survivors, or not, or we observers, not the
yes,
survivors, we observers say, oh, suicide is selfish, oh, it's selfish. They were only thinking about themselves, or they weren't thinking about their mother or wife or child or parent. And you are saying, from really decades of experience in this arena, it's not selfish, it's
no.
horrific, unendurable pain.
And they're trying hard to not be a burden because they keep the pain silent. The silence is what is growing inside of them that we are unaware of. And they're so consumed by the pain, they believe we can see it and feel it, and they're a burden. And yet, the silence that we know nothing of is what takes them from us.
Mm,
There's no selfishness there. That is love. They love us so much, they don't want us to feel their pain. Little do they know, they leave us their pain. Yes,
Yeah.
but it's survivable. A survivor of suicide loss can survive this if they get out of their head.
All right. So, one of the things that you wrote in your book was that you had to get through a moment to another moment to moment to moment to minute in
Yes.
order to get through a day. I remember
Oh,
our conversations, and it's in your book about how you would just be sitting there. You know, your people are coming in, you don't want to talk to them, you don't want people around you. You have to get through in the survival
yes,
mechanism. You have to get through the moments, and then the moments are sewn together to make a day, and the days are then eventually sewn together to make um, basically a life. And you even say, yes, you can achieve a life of joy. And now, to be very extremely mindful in this moment that we're having this sensitive, tender, deep,
vulnerable.
vulnerable conversation in this
Yes,
moment in real time, that we don't know who's going to be listening to us, where they are in their journey. Somebody might have
yes,
just lost someone. Somebody
yes,
might be in that fear space of worrying about it,
yes,
not talking, not knowing. Somebody might be in the complete numb space, even a year later or years later. And so I just want to really acknowledge this again
yes.
to our listeners and our viewers, that we realize we're engaging in this conversation, and that we honor and respect. And of course, we don't know where you are in your
That's right.
journey. So
Yes,
I wanted to really, I'm very like, I'm feeling this very deeply. So now we're talking, Penny, about they're trying hard not to be a burden,
yes,
what's happening inside them. And I just wanted to clarify where this is coming from. How you know this is from so much time, and you have a YouTube channel with many, many videos on it on this topic, and we'll be putting that
yes,
in the notes
yes,
of having conversations like this
yes.
with people in this state of mind, in
That's
this
right.
state of being. Yeah,
Yes,
that's where this is coming from. And then you said that it's so loud in them, but
yes,
to us, it's silent. And so
absolutely.
you were one of the people who had this sudden, completely traumatic, tragic loss. And then,
Yes,
you have, you've been on a survival path for a long time, as witness of your series of books called
yes,
the Survival Series. At this
yes.
time, I would like to acknowledge that you already had lost another child, your beloved
I had.
daughter.
Yes, I
To
had. Thank you,
Yeah, of course. Her name was Laura,
Laura.
right?
Yes,
Yeah, Laura, and you lost her to an illness
yes.
um,
A
already
neurologist. Yes, at 4.
at age 4. And
Yes,
so, if you, but, and I hope you will look up Penny and click on the link to the survival series, you'll see multiple books on
yes,
surviving various
yes.
traumatic and tragic losses.
Yes, yes. I also wrote a book that was uploaded to Amazon and I've removed it to change it. And it's how to start up a support group for survivors of suicide loss, all in dialoguing with Dr. Jack Jordan, which is and was, always will be a huge part of the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. He inspired me beyond words. And that's what made me go forward and fundraise and do our own video, an hour-long video of survivors talking about their loss
Wow.
of a loved one. And it's on YouTube as well. There are
Good.
people that have inspired me. A lot of it has come from my gut, my heart, and my head, and talking to so many. I've lost count of how many survivors of suicide loss contacted me to talk about their story. So,
And also, first of all, I want to thank you so much. I also acknowledge, like I'm acknowledging you here. You were the person I thought of. I always acknowledge
thank you.
people I learn from, and
Yes,
we learn and grow from, and then we create our own. So
yes,
I want to invite our listeners and viewers to understand something that I'm talking about a lot these days, and that is, as you heard in the introduction to this podcast platform, that
yes,
we need local leaders. Of course, we need global and national leaders
sure.
of all kinds, but
Yes,
uh, at this time, we need local leaders. Local leaders is you, and open your mind to the idea of what a leader is, because it's not what it used to be. It's not what you think it is. It's
yes,
you feeling confident, sure, bold,
yes,
and
yes,
able to really understand that you can make a difference. So, for example, you can contact Penny about the idea of starting up a support
yes,
group for survivors of suicide
yes,
loss. Don't be afraid of it. It's very needed. It's drastically, even
yes.
dramatically needed right now. And then there's so many outcomes, potential
There's
outcomes.
there's so many, Susan, that don't come forward. LinkedIn lately, the past year, maybe more, but at least the past year, the past few months, people are feeling so confident. And that's not easy to come out and publish your story on LinkedIn, that because you're opening yourself to criticism. There's people out there that don't care, there's no empathy, there's no compassion, and they have a totally different gut feeling about suicide. Unfortunately, they're uneducated. And how I get through without being angry and judgmental is, it's okay to be uneducated. Please let me educate you.
Yeah.
I
Oh my
wouldn't
gosh, I love
design a
this.
bridge. I wouldn't design a bridge for you to drive over. It's just not my expertise. But I can tell you it's safe and it's okay to talk openly about surviving the loss of suicide. And you don't need to be a professional. You don't need 4 years of schooling. Tacit knowledge got me where I am today. Personal experience and talking to many that have shared their story. I just didn't wake up one day with this.
And to tell you the truth, I learned this from you.
Yes,
I learned this from you, that's how we came to be having this real,
yes,
raw, deep,
yes,
vulnerable,
yes.
authentic conversation today.
When I contacted you, Susan, I said, like I did to the editors and others that helped me with my book, you mainly promise me that I can speak openly and you won't try to change the language. You won't sugarcoat it for the readers. It was
Mm,
important to me that I got to write my story, say my truth, be vulnerable, because that is from one survivor to another.
mm. And that's really what we're doing here today. It's very, there's a very, very big feeling coming to me right now, Penny, about how many people are already suffering,
Oh,
and sadly and tragically, how many more people will. And the thing is, I've learned, because you're not the only one I know, even though these people are not inside my personal family or close
yes,
friends space, but I know several other people who suffered tragic, completely
yes,
shocking suicide loss experiences, completely unknown to them. And so, and one of the reasons I have these conversations is we literally don't know what is going to befall us. Anybody who knows my story knows, I lost my husband. I never imagined or expected that to
yes,
happen to me, and everything that goes along with that.
yes,
And so that's really why it's important for all of us to open up and listen. It may not be us, it may be someone we know. What is so important here is how much you're really helping us to understand the importance of becoming educated and opening up to realize that we can talk about these things in real life, and we can be the one to be the ear, to
right,
listen, to
yes.
make quiet, loving statements.
Provide, provide that safe, unconditional, non-judgmental environment. We can do that.
Right.
It's not that tough. My story brought me to today, but my story, it is not about me when I am listening to others. It's about them.
Mm,
And I learned that over my years because people that have contacted me, Susan, my story, even to me today, is tragic. But to hear other people's story, I'm so grateful to be able to let them tell me, a mother that has lost three teenage boys to suicide, a mother that lost a child to suicide. In turn, she leaves a child because she takes her life because of her loss. Story after story, I realized my story is what brought me to be able to have empathy and compassion. That's why I can do what I do.
mm,
I want to do what I can do. It's not personal. I fear nothing. I have nothing to fear. I have no liability, only accountability to myself.
mm,
I can't fix people, but what I can do is offer them everything possible and give them the opportunity to tell me, what do you need? Can I help you? Can I offer? I can give you resources. That's all I can do. I know my boundaries. I know my limitations. That is all it takes to save a person.
wow. I know my boundaries. I know my limitations. Earlier, you let us know we're not here to fix this situation. We're taught and trained that we should, and we want to, and we might fix this situation, but that's not really what we're learning about here from you
Right.
today. Um, I am something is coming up for me. Even I want to just say, of course, I really get you, because I too am here today because of my own personal experience. And so I
Yes.
can empathically, lovingly listen to someone else who experienced my experience. I really do
Yes.
understand what
Yes.
you're saying. Now, to the person listening to us who doesn't want to or ever believe they could be that safe person or listening,
Right.
I want to say, if you share this video, this discussion, there may be
Yes.
someone else in your life who understands that they might be able to do this, to play their role. We're not here to say to anyone, you should be doing this, you should be up for this, you should understand this. We're not here. That's not what we're doing here today. We're simply helping people to understand, here's how you might understand this circumstance, how you could show up for it, and
Right.
how it might feel for you if you understand it from this perspective. Um, do you understand what I was saying there?
Definitely, I do,
Yeah,
Susan. Thank you.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Good.
I think people realize that they can share resources like they have a workshop for women. They have a child's program. Oh, look, there's a conservation that has a play center. They are now speaking openly about autism, cancer. Oh, there's a long list of things. We share resources. We're so excited to say, hey, look, there's help. Think of that very same excitement within when somebody has lost a loved one. Be excited to say, I know of resources. Can't hurt to listen,
Right,
can't hurt to share.
right. I want to say thank you so much. This is so deep. So I do many interviews all the time, and Penny, every single solitary one I listen to again. Often I listen to these interviews with a
Yes,
pad and paper, taking my own notes to really integrate the
yes,
information, even though I'm sitting here with you, but I'm in an active listening mode. So I will be listening. I myself will be listening to this discussion that we're having. I want
yes,
to invite and encourage anyone who has happened upon us to perhaps listen for yourself, perhaps share it in such a way that others may be edified, and to understand that we all have a role to play when emotional unwellness is rampant and
yes,
mental unwellness is
yes,
rising.
yes,
And further, mental health itself is deteriorating into mental illness.
yes,
And so we all can be tuned into this. We've learned from Penny today to sit quietly with someone and say, what do you need? We don't have to
yes.
be in the deepest desperation of the
No,
possibility of suicide discussion, to simply look around, more alert, more aware, more open, more willing to say to people around us, how are you doing?
yes,
What do
right.
you need? Right?
That's right. Exactly, exactly. Yes, yes. And
It,
now you are educated, Susan. Without even knowing, having this discussion, you are now more educated than you were the first time we met.
completely.
What did it cost you? Your time, your willingness to listen, your ability to sit and listen. And you don't have to listen to this whole podcast, the whole, however long it is. Take it a little at a time,
Mm,
revisit. You don't have to do it all at once. It's a lot of information. That's what's nice about being able to click, listen, stop, rewind, click, listen, stop. It's simple.
yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for saying that. I myself have been edified on many topics of interest to me, and I do that. I listen to 3-hour long,
Yes.
course discussions
Yes.
on deep topics. And so I do like the idea, especially with this, where we've gone today, to click,
Yes.
listen, stop when you need.
Right.
And so, Penny, I just want to do something to support us because we've been in this conversation and to support anyone listening. I want to invite you, Penny, to sit your body up and take your one hand and put it on your heart, and then the other hand down low in your abdomen area. So we're supporting our structure. We're opening up. You and I, we've been having this conversation. Our bodies kind of began to close in from leaning forward in the intensity and
Yes.
emotion of this discussion. And so now I'm inviting us to open up, bring your shoulders back and down, and also bring your chin down a little bit so that your neck is better aligned with your spine. And we're just going to take a breath to begin to soothe our nervous system to come into a little bit of a more restorative place. So, what we're going to do, Penny, is we're going to take a long, slow, deep breath in through our nose. And then we're going to do a long, extended exhale out through our nose. Okay, here we go. I want to let people know that this single, simple, long, slow, deep breath in through your nose, long, extended exhale out through your nose can help adjust your nervous system to bring you from the what we call the fight or flight, the difficulty of the high emotion of this conversation into a more restorative place. This is Qigong, Penny. I teach Qigong. I practice Qigong
Yes.
myself. And I want to acknowledge that this has been the deepest, authentic, and raw conversation. Penny, my dear friend, my dear one, you are loved. Your voice is needed today. And I want to send you really a blessing to tell you the truth that you continue to have the strength and perseverance to realize your voice is important, your experience divine. And I really hope and pray for you that many people will find you and you will be able to help them.
Thank
That's
you
my
very much,
blessing.
Susan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And to everybody that tunes in and finds the courage to listen. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, Penny, until our next conversation, we'll
Yes.
be taking a break to
Okay.
recoup,
Perfect.
regenerate, and
Oh,
restore.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you.
And, but I'll look forward to it. Take good care. Wishing you the best.
You too, Susan. Bye for now.
Bye for now.